Awesome. Well, we're here at the NAMM convention, and I'm sitting down with Jack and Thomas, and we are talking about making records. So, if just a cool place to start with something that you brought up earlier. What's some of your favorite projects that you guys have worked on?
I've worked with like Sam Smith, like Dancing with a Stranger is one of my favorite records. Watching that thing come together was awesome. I've done mixing for Dominic Fike. That was another great one for me, and Rihanna, the Anti-album. Did a lot of engineering on that project. So those are like some of my three like favorite ones, I would say.
Very, very
Man.
cool. So, you just brought up that you were engineering one of these projects. Was that from start to finish?
Yes. So I used to engineer for Stargate. So I was like their engineer for almost 10 years.
Wonderful.
So we got to do like majority of the Sam Smith project with them.
Okay, and the Rihanna project as well.
And the Rihanna, that was when I used to work at Westlake Studios.
Yep.
So that was all done there. I was like one of the house engineers there.
Okay.
So I got put on that for like 2 years, which was an awesome time.
Okay, so when you get buried into these projects for 2 years and you really dedicate your whole life to them, that becomes a different, mental state and vibe than doing something like mixing the project that you did for Dominic Fike. What do you prefer more? Do you prefer to fully immerse yourself in your work, or, of course, when you're doing that mixing as well, you do that, but it happens what I would consider quicker. It's more like a flash.
Yeah, I think I prefer more of the flash method these days.
Yep.
I've been doing it for a while. Definitely into the mixing more. I like to kind of just be left alone to be creative and do my thing and just take a record to the finish line. I just spent so many years in those studios doing 15-hour to 20-hour days, and now I got family now, so I definitely prefer being on the other side of it now. But yeah,
awesome. So
there's also something to touch on what Thomas was saying. I actually fall in the same boat, and I do a lot of production as well from start to finish, and done a lot of records. But I actually sort of prefer the lone wolf thing now as well, just because you get into a headspace, you get to focus. It's almost like a Zen kind of thing. But some of my favorite projects that I've done, like I was one of the music producers for American Horror Story. So like for instance on the third season of Freak Show, all the songs that the cast sang, that was done. I did those songs with a producer. Adam Anders, but they would do the music, and then I would get with the actors and physically have to get all the vocal performances and stuff like that. And also worked on I produced a Blues Traveler record, and did some work with Jamie Foxx on a record, and Ricky Lee Jones, and Rod Stewart and Zach Brown Band. So
amazing.
Those are some.
So one thing I can say about some of those records that I just know from my personal experience and listening to them, some of those records sound very alive.
Yeah,
and a lot of those artists that you just listed off, it seems like they're going for that, where they want to sound, like people in a room.
Some of those records I didn't take from start to finish. Some of those records, like I was also known as like one of the horn guy. Yeah. Like I would do, like, they would have these big horn sections, and I'm being from New Orleans, I know how to do horns. Well, I know how to do drums.
Absolutely, and not even going from start to finish, but just being involved in those projects with those people. There's an authenticity that certain people are looking for out of their recordings that sometimes, doesn't matter how great you may be at a lot of things, if you can't step up to the plate and have something feel real, I think that's a whole other level of engineering that a lot of people have gotten away from.
Yeah.
And being able to call in to get that call is a big thing.
Like Thomas and I are probably two sides of the same coin. Like I'm very, very good at making what I call acoustic records.
Yeah.
Things that move air, upright bass, tuba, brass bands, bluegrass records, jazz records. I know how to bite the hell out of a piano. So things like that I'm really good at. I'm good at rock records too. But what's funny is that a lot of the records that Thomas has made,
it's all Splice.
It's
No, I was kidding.
No. I know it's not.
Well, it's not because believe me, I have some clients that come to me and they want to make those records, and I'm just not good at it. I'm not as good at it.
Well, and there's a fine line there too, and I know I have one insight because Zach Bryan actually called the studio to book a session that didn't end up happening, but they asked for a mono drum overhead.
Yeah. Asked for what? I'm sorry.
A mono drum overhead.
Oh wow.
And is that something that you do often and requested?
Not often, to be honest. No.
Yeah, yeah.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, I found it very interesting.
Cole's 4038, baby.
Yeah, and
You know?
I'm a fan of like a single 67 or a single 414. Got away for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I've done whole like records, like big records, like with 4 drum mics, Glenn John's thing. I've a pair of C37s, an RCA 44 in the front, and something in the kick drum. And that'll be it. And if the snare drum's too loud, tell them to hit it lighter.
Yep. You just brought up one of my favorite things in the world, which was snare drum.
Yeah, love it.
So you get a snare drum to mix. What's the first thing that you would put on it if you had access to any piece
I'd love
of
to
gear in the
hear
world?
Thomas's answer on this.
I mean, I guess I really got to feel out the record and look what they're going for. But
Okay,
usually,
it's a medium good sounding snare drum. It's not a bad one. You don't need to fuck with it, but you can make it better.
I can make it better. I mean, I'd probably prefer to some hardware inserts. Realistically, I'd probably do like one of my vintage 1176s.
Okay, a vintage 1176.
And then, of course, then I'll commit that, move back to the box. And I have been using the MBSI a lot, like that channel strip. I've been using that a lot on snares and stuff
Awesome.
and drums. Otherwise, it's Fab Filter for me, just simple EQ.
Very cool.
But yeah.
When you're using your 1176, how do you like to set the attack and release time? Are those full left, full right, or do you what are you doing?
A little of that, but
Yep.
sometimes kind of more centered, depending on what I'm looking for here.
Okay.
It just depends. So some of them are printed with effects, so I don't want to do too much.
Okay.
Start messing with the verb and stuff.
And how much are you looking for on the meter?
Between like 3 and 5, usually, depending on. Yeah.
Okay. And do you gate it, or are you not worried about the hi-hat at all?
Sometimes I'll gate it. It just depends, again, on the record, but
Yep.
yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, man.
What are you going with?
As far as snare drum, well, it's funny. You just talked about it. Depends on how hard are they, how loud are the hi hats, So, I will soft gate it. Like I'll gate it to where the range isn't all the way up. It's like halfway, and I'll do things like I love an SSL channel on snare. I'm still, I love the MBSI because the compressor on it is amazing, even though the original MCI console didn't have a compressor.
Thank you.
And I really do love the compressor, whatever you guys put on it. I like the old school Black Channel Waves SSL, like the one that came out like 12, 15 years
I'm also
ago.
a fan of that.
Yeah, I mean it's like, and so I use that, and I'll if I'm using the MBSI, it would have to be something that doesn't need a lot of carving. Like because I love the mid cut, even though once again the mid cut didn't exist on the original console. It was just a boost, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'll use the mid usually to cut, not to. I almost don't use the MBSI mid range ever to boost. It's always to cut.
Interesting.
And I
use it that way as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I hardly ever use it to boost. It always lives in
Okay,
cut.
so I got a question for you, theoretically.
Sure.
Do you guys think you would have hated the console then?
I mean,
Maybe.
look. Having actually worked on one of those MCI consoles, they sound great. If it's limited, you just use an outboard piece. I would use a API 550 or something. But the console itself sounds great, and just the channel, just
running through
it, right?
Tasteful,
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I would still use it, even if it only had a boost. I would still use it.
That's cool.
If it was like the true MCI with the suppressor and the boost, I would still use it.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So, let's throw it back to, the wonderful Dave Pensato, and let's do a little bit of what he called the batter's box. So,
All right.
If I throw something out there, I just want the first thing that pops into your head, one option only, lead vocal reverb.
I like the Lexicon, the 224 a lot.
Okay, the 224.
I love for like a cool vocal slap that I have like a preset in.
Yep.
That I just use all the time for like a little dimension. But then I mix that as well. So
Mix the slap into
I
the
mix it
reverb.
with a different verb. Yeah. So I'll just kind of do multiple.
Okay, are you using the 224 for a slap as well?
Yeah, I use that. There's like a cool vocal slap that I make out of there. Really short decay. It's really nice.
Very cool. Which algorithm do you use to make that?
To be honest, I don't know. I'm
okay.
just kind of messing with it.
No, very cool.
Yeah.
Lead vocal reverb.
This is going to be an unconventional one, but I really, honestly, I one that I find myself using a lot is either the Valhalla plate or the Valhalla room. You know,
Okay.
I love both of those. I mean, that's the ones that I like. It's because it's fast, and if I do love the Lexicon. Relab has got some nice Lexicon emulators, and
I do like though, because I feel like a lot of my stems, you know, from labels like the higher producers are printed already.
Oh, they'll
with
print the
effects.
reverb on.
Yes.
So I'm just adding some texture that I feel like fits in between what they're doing.
Yes.
If I get raw vocals and I'm like vintage verb mixing with Lexicon, mixing maybe the Audioscape one that they came out with, and I'll do like 3 or 4 together. and
So
make my
you
own.
just brought up something that has been a thing that I've had to address before. Do you have anything that you use trick-wise to address bringing down those printed effects if they're too loud?
Yeah, I use a thing called a text message. I'm like, can I get the stems a little less? No, I'll do that, or it'll. There's like a Clarity plugin that's like the deverb. It's pretty good.
Yep.
Clarity VX.
And it helps a bit, but it starts to get a little artifacty sometimes.
Yep.
So
Yes.
I just prefer to get the clean vocals reset, to be honest.
Yep.
But,
Yeah.
No, that was a great response.
Yeah, it was, and you know, SBL makes one too. The Deverb is good.
Yep.
Oh, that's right,
I've
yeah.
used that one a few times.
I've gone in. I've got a preset that I've come up with that's really powerful in Isotope. You know, RX.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
a good one.
And as far as you know, hardware units, I gotta say, man, people are gonna make fun of me. I don't give a shit. I still love the sound of an old Yamaha Rev 7. I really do.
Rev 7 on lead vocal reverb.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite setting?
Number one.
Number one.
Number one. It's
Vocal
it's like
hall
it's
or
like vocal
something?
hall or
Yep.
big hall or whatever. I'm telling you,
the one.
because you just EQ it and it sounds great, man. And look, you heard it here first. Everybody's gonna make fun of me for saying that, but you watch in 5 years when like that shit comes back around and it comes on people's radar, all of a sudden Rev 7s on Reverb are going to be, or eBay are going to be worth, you know, $1,000. You can get it for $50 right now.
I'm right there with you. You know, I've been learning about. I've always been a big fan of SPX style reverbs on drums.
Yeah.
And we actually have a plugin that we're doing with David Bendeth here that has an SPX in it.
The old SPXs, they were trash. People
Yep.
were throwing them away, literally throwing them away. And now they're, you know, they were like a collector's piece. People want them back. They're like,
you know, that's the Metallica reverb, the Paramore
Yeah.
reverb. But you know, one that I found recently, thanks to the wonderful Jake Bass in Detroit, is the Yamaha SPX 990 on White Room is Dr. Dre's vocal reverb. So when you listen to all those Eminem mixes,
They had great reverbs there.
yeah, great reverbs.
you know, which one is another vintage one that a lot of people want back, but this one's on the radar and it's expensive. What's the old Sony one, a V77 or a V?
Yeah, the DPS 77.
Yeah. That one is one that like is kind of on the radar now.
I'm
Like,
still really a huge fan of the Bricasti and stuff.
oh yeah,
The
I mean,
M7.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so
those are-
what settings do you like in there?
I mean, I like a lot of the halls that they have in there.
Okay.
They're just really like tasteful and warm. And
I've never gotten a
they're
chance to
not too,
use
like,
one.
Oh, they're easy to dial in. Like,
Yeah.
anytime I go to Westlake, I'm like, can you patch this in, please? Like,
I always loved about the Bricasti, they've got that, is it RF to BF or whatever, the front and back thing where you can
Oh, yeah.
move between the early reflections and the late reflections in a very
Right.
tasteful way.
One of my favorites is I have an old AKG Spring reverb that's it's stereo. It looks like an old microwave or an old TV.
Okay.
It's not. They made two of them. They made a big wooden one.
Yep.
That's tall.
That's the
And
BX10.
yeah, and then I have the one after that.
Yeah.
The one, like I said, it looks like an old TV.
Okay.
And I also have an 250 Echo plate. And,
Very cool.
And both of those, I mean, you just print the reverb. It's amazing.
Amazing. So do you like to put a delay or an EQ on any of those?
If I do, I'll literally print it and then I'll just click it over 30 milliseconds or 9 clicks to the right, 90 milliseconds or whatever it is.
I do 8 clicks.
You do
8
what?
clicks.
8?
So what do you pre-delay reverb at, or do you pre-delay?
It depends, honestly, man. Like, I take everything record by record and performance. I really just mess with stuff. I don't have like set numbers. I'm just like,
See, I got-
let me just close my eyes and just feel it and see. Okay, sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's like 40. Like depending, like on Valhalla or something.
See, and that's very cool. I got fucked up a long time ago because Bruce Swedin said to me, I always use 100 milliseconds of pre-delay on everything. So,
Yeah.
it's always at least like 107 milliseconds.
I have a
on-
starting point all the time.
Yeah.
But I just, like I said, I like to close my eyes and just mess with stuff. Like I get like distracted by numbers. It has to be 32 point something. Like
Yeah,
it's all about what it sounds like.
and that's
to
the
me,
best
so.
way. Everything you need is right here, man. I mean, it's just
Absolutely,
like,
and that's wonderful that you can just go ahead and turn some knobs till you feel
That's
good.
what I like, you know. It's the way I go.
Because
So do you have a hardware controller that you're working with, or are you primarily working with a console? How are you going?
Yeah, I'm using the Dangerous with a ton of outboard like hardware inserts.
Yep.
So most of it's in the box, but a lot I have just racks that I'm just mixing into, and I print everything at the end.
Okay.
So,
so
like
you,
for example,
so you print all your effects.
I print all my effects. And
No
all my
kidding.
hardware and everything.
Okay, interesting.
Very cool. Do you do that in real time, so you free up the piece of gear for the next place you may want to use it, or do you?
If I need it again, otherwise we're starting to get a good collection where I can kind of, I got distressors on my drum parallel.
Yep.
I'll have like Pultex on vocal bus or something, plus 1176s or, so I keep them all live mixed into it because every adjustment I'm making automation-wise, when I print the parallel compression, I want to make sure all those moves get printed as well.
Yep. So you'll go ahead, get that feeling good, and then try and print as much of it.
But
as
now
you
I'm like,
can.
dang, I want that on the bass. So
Yeah.
I'll print that real quick and then,
Yeah, but once you're done with that though, you're gonna try and print everything else in one big pass then.
hopefully that's the idea.
Yeah.
And then I start moving to my master. I do mix into like a G bus or the mix head. Like
Okay.
I'll have that on my master bus and I'll kind of mix into that always. It's low latency enough for hardware inserts. So I don't have to slap stuff around too much.
Yep.
And then I'll start moving to the master once everything's printed. So
And what's interesting is in my world, I don't get asked for stems probably as much as you do.
so many steps.
Yeah, I get asked for stems. Like I do a lot of film stuff, and I'll ask to get film and TV, and I always have to do stems for that. But like artists, they never ask me for stems. But once again, I deal with a lot of like rock artists and stuff, and they'll ask for a minus mix, but they never ask for stems, And as far as the parallel drums, I'll do parallel drums like in the tracking phase. Like I'll run the drums through a console, and then I'll take everything that's not the rooms of the cymbals, just the direct mics, and I'll run that either through an SSL G bus, or I'll run it through an old Rev 1 Joe Meek SC2 slammed, and then I'll print the parallel off the master faders of the console simultaneously with the drums.
Very cool. So you're just committing to that right from the beginning, then.
Right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right from the beginning. But I mean, you can take it off.
And you can always do it again later.
But actually, when the drummer's physically playing, the parallel is printing through the hardware.
Yeah, and I mean that's got to make them feel good because the drums
Yeah.
are rocking a little bit
Yeah,
more.
I mean
right?
it's.
What's the most minimal stems you've got in the field, like the style you're doing?
The most minimal stems.
Yeah. I think I did a mix the other day. I had like 7 stems.
Yeah, I mean that's
great.
probably accurate. Probably 6 or 7 stems or whatever. But I mean, I also like that's all the drums together. That's
combined,
not
already playing in groups.
That's not kick snares. That's
how I try and do it. I'm like, you can have your drums, bass, vocals,
'cause you
guitars.
never know.
Some people send me the stuff the way that you love it already. Like, why do I need to remake your balance?
Right.
Send it the way you like it, and we'll go from there.
There's also this worry, not worry, I guess, but it's also this like, well, what are you gonna do with it? I mean, like and are you gonna take it and is this snare drum that I recorded gonna end up on 10 other records? Because now you can sample it or whatever. It's like, so I don't know. I don't really care. I mean, they bought it. They can do whatever. They bought the time. They can do whatever they want with it.
I 100% agree. Ultimately, this is a customer service job, right?
Right.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I recently did a record for Stone Gossard from Pearl Jam, and he has a side band, and Matt Chamberlain was the drummer, and I sent Josh Evans, the producer. I did one shots for him, and like mixed them and made them sound killer, and gave him like a Matt Chamberlain one shot sample pack. As gratis, like here you go, and he was like, dude, these sound amazing, so he was, he got a free drum session or free sample pack with the drum session,
See, that's very interesting, and it makes me always think of Steely Dan.
Oh yeah.
When they were working with Wendell on Aja, one thing that I found interesting is that they'd invite drummers over.
Talking about for the Gaucho record.
Yeah. And they would sample the drummers and then give them credit for the drums on the record, even though the drum machine played them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's like I've heard. Well, I can't get into it on camera, but I've heard some stories I've heard some stories that are killer that I will tell you after.
Okay, well then, I say we wrap this up and go hear some awesome stories about Steely Dan.
All right.
There you go.
All right.
Well, thank you guys so much for your time today.
Yeah,
I
of
really
course, man.
appreciate you sitting down with us.
Thank
Oh,
you,
absolutely,
man. I
man. Yeah.
appreciate you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
If there's anything you guys need, say the word.
Thank you.
Cool. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.